And we're live.
Hey everyone, Happy New Year and welcome to the second season of Spaghetti and Baseballs brought to you by the IBF. I am your co-host Natalie alongside former MLB player Chris Colavello. Chris!
What up, Natalie? How are you? First show of 2021.
It's been a while.
I know. We needed to kick off the new year with the big show. We wanted to make sure we got it right. So that's, a little bit of what tonight's going to bring to the table.
I couldn't agree more. I was going to ask you how the holidays went, but you know what? I think we should just get this party started.
The holidays, they were the same for everybody. We all had to stay at home. We all ate food, and that was it.
I know. So should we get this done?
Yeah, let's go.
All right.
All right. Here we go. All right. Big guest tonight. Super excited. He's from Hazleton, Pennsylvania. Went to Hazleton High School, then Lafayette College. Signed as a free agent, was converted to be a catcher while he was in college. Signed as a free agent. He's a 267 career minor league hitter, which I found out. I couldn't find any dubious stats, so I'm gonna name a good one. He has no errors as a non-catcher. So that's like he's played different positions. He has no errors as a non-catcher, so he gets a good pat on the back for that. He played in the Angels organization from 1976 to 1979. Most people probably know him because he's kind of a rock star coach and manager. Coached in the Angels organization for a long time, from 1981 on to 2004, with a couple stints as interim manager of the team. And then really, I think when everybody got to know him was in 2006 when he took over the Tampa Bay Rays, managed there until 2014, brought the Rays to the World Series, Chicago Cubs 2015 to 2019, and is now the current new manager of the Anaheim Angels. 2008 World Series with the Rays. In 2009, he got to meet me at the Metrodome, which I think was probably like a great honor for him. Obviously, he didn't know who I was. He managed my best baseball buddy, Sam Fuld, which was really cool. In 2014, he got to watch me hit the most memorable homer I'll ever have on my mother's birthday while she was being interviewed at the Trop. 2015, he almost got to play against me in the World Series, but we messed up and we both lost in the championship series. And then in 2016, very second to all those things with me, he actually won the World Series with the Chicago Cubs. And it's the first time the Cubs had won the World Series in 247 years. That's an approximate number. 3-time manager of the year, 4 division titles, 4 postseason berths, 2 World Series appearances, and 1 ring on his finger. The great Joe Madonni, appropriately known, more welcome known as Joe Madden to most. Joe, how are you?
CC and Nat, how you guys doing? I can't believe all the work you did right there. That was actually pretty accurate.
That's the most work done all time.
I think one of my favorite stats as a player with the Angels was I think I actually struck out and walked the same number of times. I didn't strike out a lot. I took my walks, that kind of thing. I was a backup catcher. I was very non-infamous. Actually, my better sport was football, playing in Hazleton back in high school. That was my better sport, but baseball was my passion.
You could hit a little bit. 267 is nothing to scoff at, by the way.
Well, I started my first year was 296.
Yeah, I noticed
in
that.
In Quad Cities, when I got to play more consistently, it was all the Angels' fault, man. They screwed up.
Exactly.
Opportunity. Yes. I could have been a manager there. I could have been a very good player there. They kind of screwed that whole storyline up.
I think it would have been even better if at some point you're a player coach, roll out 9,300.
Could have done it. Absolutely. Could have done it.
There's no question in my mind. I mean, after getting to know you a little bit, and obviously I've had some interaction with you over the years now and played against you, and you were thank you for telling Oda Rizzi to throw the changeup right down the middle while my mom was being interviewed, because I created the greatest birthday present she's ever had. So that was
awesome. And that was he learned that pitch from Alex Cobb, and that's kind of gotten Jake over the hump. Prior to that changeup, he was good, but then he got real good. And he's a wonderful young man. And you mentioned Sammy Fuld. I didn't know you and Sammy were that tight. I don't know why I didn't know that, but I'm really happy about his ascension too. Sam's one of the best.
Yeah,
and it's great to see him with the Phillies right now.
He's got to be the only guy in baseball that could interview for probably one of the most premier manager jobs in the game, and then 3 weeks later get a GM job, which that's pretty interesting, right?
But right, did he win or lose? I mean, he loses the one job, he wins the other.
Yeah.
I mean, Sammy, he's got that quiet personality, but when you hear him talk, he's obviously very bright and introspective, and he considers everything. That's the best way I could describe him.
Absolutely.
And he's a great listener. So I'm really happy for this opportunity for him.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, what do you got?
Well,
You get the penetrating stuff. I'm
sorry.
Like I said, I'm asking the stupid
No,
stuff.
it's all good. It's all good. I wanted to ask because CC mentioned, obviously everyone knows you as Joe Madden, but your name is actually Madani. So tell us what happened.
Madonna. Both my grandparents on the Italian side came from Italy, obviously. And when they got to town, my grandpa, Madden Madoni, he went into the coal mines originally, but eventually developed a plumbing shop. Right. And with that, when you get in business, and back in the day, apparently, you didn't want to have your name identify exactly your ethnicity, your nationality, because you would get less opportunity to get somebody from the Italian or Polish or Slovak part of town to call you for work. Right. So the more Anglo-Saxon version would be Madden. They just dropped. If you look at Maddoni, they just chopped off the N and the I. And so Grandpa Madden created C. Madden and Sons Plumbing and Heating, which my dad and all my uncles worked at. My dad, Uncle Jack, Uncle Buzz, my brother Mark, Michael Nitch, my cousin Ronnie, they all worked in the shop as plumbers for years. And my grandma was a Frasca, and her father lived to be 102, great grandpa Frask.
Awesome.
And back in the day, we'd have a family reunion during the summertime at one of the groves. Not an exaggeration, not hyperbole. 200 people in the picture. I mean, I was related to like a whole section of town. The Gaudianos, the Grecos, the D'Arcangelos, all these Marnells, everybody. And it could not have been more fun. See, that's the part of the world today that the kids don't get this opportunity to really get to know their past and have all these aunts and uncles and cousins to interact with. It was fabulous. So when you hear me talk about home, I say was the best place ever as a kid to grow up. I absolutely believe that. And that's part of the project we have back there right now, the Hazleton Integration Project. I want kids to have that same opportunity that I had, to have like the most fun in the world and feel protected at the same time.
No, absolutely. And at that center, you have about 1,000 kids that stroll in a week with all sorts of programs, activities. So it's pretty amazing to create that culture to give back to everyone.
Well, yeah, I'm sure you're aware because you guys do good research. My hometown when I grew up was pretty much all European. There was no blacks, there was no Hispanics, no anything other than, like I said, Italian, Polish. Where I live was where the Italian and Polish sections came together. And actually my mom, Polish, was literally like a block away from where we grew up. That's where she was born and raised. So we had all of that going on back then at that time. So Hazleton all of a sudden is almost 50% Hispanic, if not actually 50% or more now. And in 2010, Jay and I, my wife, went back to town, and I was really disappointed in what I was seeing. A lot of fear in the city, a lot of disconnection, a lot of nobody was really getting along, and it was going in a bad way. Yeah. And it was obvious that we needed to bring the folks together and do something to do that. What promotes that? And that we thought community center, we thought a place that create after school programs. So when parents are still working, kids have a place to go as opposed to an opportunity to get in trouble. And we've really developed it into a national model. It really has become a national model. And our kids, we now have a group of the honor students that are going to Bloomsburg University, which is about 26 miles away, and are killing it. They're absolutely killing it. I just told recently that the professors from Bloom love when our kids enter this college university because they're so respectful and they're on time and they care about what's going on. And I don't mean to criticize anything or anyone right now, but kind of a throwback. Respect is the word that I think really we've lost the definition for. And our group at the center is doing such a great job. Not only are their guys, but the parents. The parents of these kids are doing a wonderful job of raising them, and they're really showing up well in college.
No, that's amazing. Another thing, you said the word respect. Yep. You have another foundation, Respect 90.
Yes.
And I love how you came up with the name while you were sitting on a plane, middle seat, upset you didn't get a job.
Oh, yeah.
And let's talk about that a little bit more and how much back in that foundation as well.
Yeah, respect. That time, I'll tell you what happened on the airplane. That was like early 90s. I had just been passed over for a job with the major league team, and I was really upset because I was pretty much running the minor league system on the field. I was doing a lot, and I thought I deserved this opportunity. Wasn't given it, and I was beside myself. I thought it was unfair. I was going to quit. And listen, I'm an angel, and I still am an angel, thank God. But at that time, I was ready to take a walk, and I get on an airplane, and I'm going to Midland. The minor league hitting instructor and field coordinator. I'm going to Midland. Bad attitude, and I never have a bad attitude. I had a bad attitude, and I get on, and I get on the middle seat. I don't want to talk to anybody. Put my, old-fashioned spongy headphones on. Don't talk to me. But this lady wanted to talk at the window seat, and I'm just trying to carry on. I'm trying to not be rude, which I'm not by nature, but I didn't want to talk. But finally, we're going, I think, somewhere over Tucson, and I'm leaning in to grab something out of that little pocket, and she said to me, "Remember, whatever you put out there comes back to you." And I picked my head up and I said, "What?" And she repeated it one more time. And I swear to you, that one phrase changed everything. Whenever I feel bummed out right now, for any reason, I just think of that. And it's so true. However we interact with others that we come in contact with, that's pretty much what you're getting in return. Mm-hmm. So whatever you put out there comes back to you. Positive vibes back. Right. Negativity, you get negativity back. And eventually from that Respect 90 Foundation was born years later, like I said, on that plane ride in 2010 when we went back there. And Respect 90 is a distance from home plate to first base, the 90 feet. And what I wanted in all the interviews that I did to become a manager, okay, what are your rules? What are your regulations? Well, I believe if a Major League Baseball player, any baseball player, runs hard and respects that distance, it'll permeate the rest of their game. So that's where Respect 90 comes from. And then what we also figured out was respect begins at home plate. So it's a double entendre there where you got Respect 90, the distance, and then respect begins at home. So simple, but absolutely a perfect marriage right there with those two concepts.
That is incredibly cool. And by the way, just you said Natalie's researched, and I'm not as much, believe me. Natalie read your book, knowing that you're going on the show. I want you to know that. Like, this is how excited she was. So I did not read your book. I probably will now. But you've always been one of my favorites, right? I obviously never had the opportunity to play for you, played against you a bit. It's amazing to me because all the things that you just said are reflected so clearly in who you are as a manager. Literally, I was leaving the office a little while ago, and one of the kids, he played at Holy Cross. He was a baseball player at the time, and he said, "Oh, you got the show tonight." He said, "Who's on?" I said, "Joe Madden," and he was like, "Oh my God, he's a dude, right?" Like everybody I talked to, Joe Madden's a dude. Now I said, "Listen, let me tell you something. There's two guys that I haven't had the opportunity to play for that I've really revered, and I almost did with Tito. I kind of was there with the Indians, but you and him are, kudos to you, man, because I've never heard a bad word said about you, and kind of leads me into a question.
Sure.
How did coaching become a thing? Was it a natural progression, and then could you ever seen it coming this far?
Yes. You have to see it coming this far, else you never get to this point. I really believe that also. I mean, of course, I wanted to play in the big leagues, and then that was the opportunity was taken away. They told me I wasn't good enough, and then but plus my body was breaking down. I started playing football when I was 10, midget football and all that stuff, and things just stopped working freely or smoothly. So even when I was a player, one of the best scouts in the history of baseball, you never heard of this guy? His name was Lloyd Christopher. Lloyd Christopher played for the San Francisco Seals back around DiMaggio's time. Lloyd had these steely blue eyes and this stare that I swear to God, he would just pierce you. He would pierce your soul. And he was my cross-checker too eventually. But he was a scout with the Angels. And I'm just hanging out in Visalia taking some BP, which was the Twins at that time. Taking some BP on the side. I had a nice night the night before, hit a homer, felt really good about myself. I think I was 23, whatever. And Lloyd walks up to me and asks, he says, "Hey, Joe." "Yes, what's up, Lloyd?" "When are you going to stop playing and start coaching?" Dude, I mean, he said that to me like I'm 23.
Oh,
I thought it was hot, and all of a sudden, like this guy that I think I knew revered. I mean, revered this man. And he came up and said that to me, kind of burst my bubble. But apparently people saw things in me before I ever did. So 23, 24, I started getting in my head. Got released when I think it was 25, 26 eventually. And I started managing when I was 27. I got a job as a scout, full-time scout, and a minor league manager. Tremendous break to become a scout first. Larry Himes gave me that opportunity. The thing that I think a lot of guys are missing today on the major league level, managers, coaches, whomever, they don't have the same history or background, the mentorship that I went through. And I'm so pleased I had to wait till 51 to become a manager, because I've never wanted anything before it's my time to have something. And by waiting that long, everything was in order. So people may think I shoot from the hip, come from left field, whatever you want to call it. But no, everything that I put out there, I have tried on a practice field, a backfield, a remote city in the Northwest League, Texas League, the Midwest League. I've tried all this stuff. It's tried, and I've tried it, and I've had conversations, and I've spoken to some great baseball minds. So I was really lucky to get that opportunity, and I knew that, and I also knew I didn't play in the big leagues, obviously. So my goal was to get there as a coach. I thought I needed to get to the major leagues as a coach before I could ever be considered as a manager. That, I think, is common sense,
Sure.
Especially back then. I mean, right now, jobs are given out, major league managers' jobs are given out differently.
Yeah.
Back then it was impossible. What you're seeing right now was just the opposite. You had to go through, like you said, through the grinder. And so I put in 10 years?
13 years, I think, in your mind before you became a coach.
Yeah. Right. And then I think 10 or so as a major league coach before I became a manager, 11 or something like that. But I often said it takes 10 years as a coach to equal 1 day as a major league player in people's eyes, because at that time, if you did not play, it was really held against you on a lot of different levels. It did. And even though you played minor league baseball, even though you had a great base background, it was perceived you were lacking, and you were not going to get that opportunity from general managers, and other people are just going to be in line, regardless of your qualifications over somebody else. That one stigma would overrule everything else. So I had to wait, and I'm glad I did. I'm glad it worked out, because I was interviewed for the Angels, the Diamondbacks, the Seattle Mariners, and I know I'm forgetting somebody else. Pardon?
Was it the Reds? No. Was it the Red Sox?
Oh, Red Sox. Thank you. You're right. It was Red Sox. That's why I met Theo.
So you want to talk about some of this research right there?
That was outstanding. Because I forgot, and you did.
Best co-host. Hey, this is what makes the tandem great. I don't do anything. I do
stupid. A great team.
Yeah,
that just proves what a great team you guys are.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, I have a kind of a follow up, and I don't know if this is like putting you on the spot or not, because it's, in a nutshell, do you have, what is your coaching philosophy? If you had to break it down to one sentence or one paragraph, because I've heard, obviously your personality is awesome. I know how much you appreciate fun and culture, and that's what winning is about. But if you have something that you live by, or kind of a motto that really stands out as you go into your next job or your next season or whatever it may be.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you walk into the door, when I walked into Tampa Bay, walked into Chicago, and I'm walking back into LA, before you could establish any kind of, baseball philosophy, whatever your game plans, how do you want to go about your business of teaching things, before that ever arrives, it really comes down to 3 items. Number one, to build relationships. That's number one. You have to take the time to have conversations, build relationships, and really listen. Just don't pretend to listen. Listen. And so when you go through the process of building relationships, the second natural step would be to create trust. You and I cannot coexist in a way that we're going to win a championship unless we trust one another. It's impossible. It's impossible. And I can't get the trust without you and I talking, getting to know one another. This guy's okay. I got to listen, because you need to get to that point where step 3 occurs. And step 3 would be that you could have an open exchange of ideas. Constructive criticism can flow without any repercussion. So relationship building, trust occurs, and now we can actually disagree. And you don't have to be right. I don't have to be right. We just got to get it right. So those are the first 3 things to me that have to be in place before they could start instituting or putting out there the things that I think that are important to build this team, this winning team culture on the field. So how do you build culture? I think you build culture right there. But those three steps, be aware of them, be cognizant of it, intentionally go out of your way to have your conversations. And then I think the natural next step or occurrence would be that you start trusting one another without even trying. In a healthy relationship, it just occurs. And then, like I said, the best meetings, the best coaches I've ever been around, my goodness, you're going to have some loud meetings, loud disagreements.
Yeah.
And I love it. I love it when it gets loud, and I love it when people are hot because they believe in something. And then, but at the end of the day, we walk out of that room unified. When you walk out there, it's got to be unified. If you're going to be that guy that always has to be right, you should never walk outside of a meeting and say to your players, well, this is what they want. If it was up to me, I would do it this way, but this is what they want. Bad method. That guy doesn't belong on your staff. That guy does not belong on your team when they start talking. Colin Powell, great book, his autobiography, talking about his role with the president, said, I owe him my best advice, and then I owe him my strongest loyalty. In other words, you ask me my opinion, here it is.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you ask him, her, whatever. At the end of the day, we're going to come to a conclusion, and whatever that conclusion may be, now we're going to go out there and project it to the group. My strongest loyalty. I think that works.
That's awesome.
Another thing came up with consistency. You remain consistent throughout, whether you're on the field, off the field, in the clubhouse, and not. So that was another thing that built. You're
doing good. Yeah, that's the one thing when it gets hot, when you're not doing so well, it's easy to be consistent. It's easy to be in a groove when everything's going well. Everybody's happy, slapping you on the back. It's easy. Hitters, the ball's like this big. Pitcher's like 65 feet. There's only 3 guys on defense. Everything's rolling in your favor. And then when it's not, the pitcher's like, 45 feet, maybe even 35. And there's like 30 guys playing defense. And it's just nothing's in the flow. And so that is the difference. And I would tell myself during bad times, before I walked in the locker room, I'd be getting out of the car in the parking lot, loud music coming in, getting ready. I'm kind of like Dwight Schrute. Have you ever seen Dwight Schrute getting ready for a sale in the back seat with Jim going to sell? He's getting all jammed up there and he hits the brakes and he hits his head. I have to have loud music to get it going. And once I do, and I walk in that door, I tell myself, be consistent. They got to see the same dude walk in the room. They cannot, I mean, you've been around guys, that the manager or the coach is really happy after a couple good days and the guy is really bummed out, surly, doesn't want to talk to you after a bad day. Really? That's how we're going to do this? And I learned that because I was around that guy. I was around several guys like that, and I don't like that. And the last point with that, some of the best lessons you learn are from those coaches or managers that you would never want to be like. You learn from God, are you kidding me? I'd never want to be that way. And that might even be the better lesson than learning from guys that you want to do what they have done.
Absolutely. I mean, all the things you're saying. First of all, I'm ready to run through a wall for you if you need me to.
Sure.
I got a lot of barrels left in me. I can still hit. Number one.
You can always hit. You can hit in your right out of bed. You're like Tommy Listell. I call him 3 a.m. Tommy can get out of the bed at 3 o'clock in the morning and hit a line drive.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. I couldn't agree with you more. Tommy is a walking line drive.
He absolutely
is. So number one, like that what you're talking about, it's so palpable too, and the feelings that you have with managers. And again, like all my respect goes to you because it's true, and it's held true throughout your career as a manager and as a coach. I'm sure before I even knew who you were, but it's so belligerently obvious watching you manage and listening to the way you talk, and even hearing guys say how much you communicate with them. Days off, when you're getting a day off, when you're going to play, when you're not going to play, and keeping that line of communication open. Because from my perspective as a player, I could feel it, and I think there were a lot of guys that they felt like they were pulling the wool over people's eyes, especially at the lower levels, even as you're coming up. Yeah. But the best teams I've ever played on, all those things that you just spoke about held true. So it's not a surprise to me that you've been as successful as you have as a manager.
A lot of that comes from listening to players. I mean, I'll give you an example with the lineups, and as a perfect example, Darren Erstad. I was a coach. I was the bench coach, and Ersty comes. Ersty. You talk about the ultimate grinder. Oh my God!
First team, all grinder. Yeah,
all grinder team, Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
So Ersty comes in one day, and I got to walk up to him and say, "Hey, you got an off day today?" He went ballistic. You can't tell me at 3:00 in the afternoon or whatever it was, 2:00, that I have the day off, because I've already gone through my whole routine before I got here today. I'm ready to go. No, I want to play. If you want to give an everyday major league player the day off, he needs to know the day before at least in order to truly have a day off. Otherwise, you start that routine, you start that clock. You get up at a certain time, you eat at a certain time. You do whatever you do at a certain time before you get to the ballpark. So if you want to give him a day off, you got to give him a day off even from that routine to come to the ballpark. So Ersty, we still stay in touch. It was beautiful, man. And obviously I never forgot this. When I became interim manager in 96, when you left the ballpark at night, I would have the lineup on the door as you walked out of the clubhouse. Now we have texts and all these different methods. But if you're a guy that plays every day, I like to bring it to you specifically. I also like to empower my bench coach to do that. It's good. It empowers the bench coach. It gives him more of an authoritative figure with the player too. So it's not like I don't want to walk around and tell people, but you're always trying to empower your coaching staff also. Sure. And when you do that, then the players, they feel that, they sense that. And so it's never just about, that's another thing I tell myself, it's not about you, brother. It's not about you. Because you get caught up in these thoughts sometimes, it's not about you. So the more I could delegate and really empower those around me, the better everything flows.
It's crazy because, all the people that mean the most to me in my life and the people that I respect the most in the game sound a lot like you, and they're the ones that I say, man, this guy's the man. And part of that comes from your humility and understanding, like, hey, the game is not about me; it's bigger than me. And I think that's such a powerful to have that powerful of an understanding of it, and really be able to convey it and embody it every day is as much respect as I could possibly have for anyone in the game. I have it for you, and I want to know from a perspective of who would you say the biggest influence on your coaching was, or if there was one person you had to pick, would you say there was any one person in particular, or was it just a combination of people?
Definitely a combination. I could go all the way back. I had some really good. Like I said, I played football as well, and there was a coach at Lafayette College named Bob Root. Coach Root was my backfield coach, my quarterback coach, and I was never coached so well because one of the things like you're kind of describing, I think, is I like to treat people as like I like to be treated myself. When I got to Lafayette, Coach Root, God, he was so good at explaining things, and I wanted to please this man so much. And if I walked off the field after, scored a touchdown, whatever, and he would come to me, because we didn't call, nobody was sending plays back then. You called your own stuff. And he said I would have done the exact same thing, like that kind of validation. But the thing about him was that he taught me really straight up communication over intimidation. I mean, a lot of guys have to resort to intimidation. And I think if you have to resort to intimidation, there's something lacking in your communicative skills if you have to go that route in order to get your point across. Coach Root was a communicator. He was the best. And then when I went to pro ball, you never heard of Bob Clear. Bob Alou was my mentor in the Angels. Bob Clear, I thought it was pretty hot, like into the mid 80s. I'd been managing in the minor leagues. We won a championship. I was doing really well. And then Bob Alou left the major league staff and came back to the minor leagues. And that's when my real education began. Bob Alou would argue with me every day. We'd get in the back room in an instructional league. I'd walk in, and this is an example. We'd walk in one day in Arizona Republic's instructional league, picture of Mark McGwire on the front page with his hand position, hitting. And I said, Bob Alou, look at that. His palm down, palm up, contact. God, that's a great look right there. He said, front, top hand should be in. I said, Bob Alou, you're nuts. And this would go on for a half an hour. I mean, yelling at each other, absolutely screaming at each other. And he taught me a really powerful lesson too, to never clone a player. I mean, that's happening in our game a lot today.
Absolutely.
There's it's almost like the Woody Allen's in charge of development these days, cloning the clones. You don't clone baseball players. And I was doing a drill that I learned from another dude, just a drill, 1, 2, 3 drill that I thought was germane to any hitter. So I'm in Cedar Rapids. I had all the hitters lined up on the left field line. They had their bats. They're going through some stuff, all pretty much doing the same thing. I walk back in the dugout. Babalu says, "What are you doing?" I says, "Well, we're just going through this 1, 2, 3. You can't clone baseball players." And I said, "Babalu, it's not." Then he went on and on and on. Of course, I dropped the drill the next day. But he was always there to point things out to me. How about back in the 80s when earrings came into it, tattoos came into it, right? Okay, I didn't get it. I didn't want it. I didn't want my players wearing an earring, having a tattoo. Babalu said, "What difference does it make? What difference does it make? Do they run hard? Do they play the game right? What difference does it make?"
That's a lot of foresight. Yeah.
Yeah, he was in his mid-60s, I think, at that time. Been through it all, came from Denver, cowboy, rough as it gets. What difference does it make? I was wasting all this energy on such a superfluous, nonsensical issue. But Babalu pointed that out to me.
And then in the 1980s, you didn't find many guys like that, especially that were in their 60s, I don't think.
No, not at all. That's exactly correct. He was, and I had another guy that was well ahead of his time, not necessarily one of my mentors, but Jimmy Reese. Do you ever hear of Jimmy Reese?
I think so. The name sounds super familiar.
Jimmy was Babe Ruth's roommate in the late 20s, early 30s. Jimmy was passed when he was 94. Jimmy was beloved. And even in like late 80s and 90s, I thought he's one of the most contemporary people I've ever met because everybody was John to Jimmy. His sense of humor was intact. He put his hand on my shoulder and he looked me like right in the eyeballs, like right up here. And it's like he'd have, swear to God, tobacco juice just dripping down, like 5 or 6 day growth. Hat was crooked. He was bent over and he looked me in the eyeballs and he would say to me, "You're the master. You're going to manage in the big leagues. You're the master."
It's awesome.
And Jimmy would say that to me. And God, did that make a difference in how I felt about myself.
Unbelievable.
This is Babe Ruth's roomie.
Yeah.
This guy was legendary. You ask Mark Langston, you ask Jimmy Abbott, you ask Finley, you ask all the old Angel guys. Nolan Ryan, him and Nolan are really tight. The best, the absolute best. So I was raised properly. I was not raised by wolves, as I could say some people have been.
And going back to that, speaking about your influences and your mentors, you and your dad had a special relationship. And I want to talk about his hat that you keep with you, that you had in your back pocket during the World Series. Do you have that hat with you now?
It's upstairs.
Uh-huh.
It's upstairs. I just took the bag upstairs. It was right around the corner. Now it's upstairs.
I should have told you before.
Yeah, you should give me a heads up. I could go get it if you like, but
no.
It's okay.
We only get so much of your time. We want all of you.
My dad, plumber, hard worker, really hard worker. Never missed a day. No lie. He never went on vacation. Like in the summertime, a vacation was he'd come watch me play. What he liked to do is go to work all day and he'd be coming back dirty, whatever. Then he'd like to go downstairs and tinker, like work on a car, work on somebody's house. He was a plumber, but he could do everything. And he always had time to play catch. Always had time to play catch. Throw me BP. He put up a tire in the backyard. We had something we called the lot. He put a tire on a rope for football and the thing would swing back and forth. I'd have to throw the ball through the tire. And then basketball hoop. We had a hoop downstairs where all my uncles, the plumbers, would come home. Filthy, dirty. Come in that place. We had the hoop on the wall. We'd play basketball until, 6 o'clock, whatever. They had to go have dinner. But so it was basketball season, baseball season, football season. There was always something going on. Never had a bad day in his life. Always smiled. You ask anybody that knew my pop, they'll all give you the same answer. The guy was just, he was just very kind, very patient, and a really good friend. So yeah, we were really tight.
I love it. And I was telling Cece before that your dad, I guess, would make friends with all the fans, just like Cece's dad would do during the games as well.
Yeah. Oh, he liked to tell you a quick story. I'm playing in Salinas. There he is. That's Beanie there too. It's my mom. We were in San Francisco. I had a day off. I was playing in Salinas. We're in day off, so we get in the vehicle. My dad had been in San Francisco prior to the war, heading out to Hawaii. And so he loves San Francisco. So where do you want to go, Dad? Let's go to DiMaggio's restaurant. Big Joe D fan, Yogi Berra fan, all the Italian players, right? So we go up there and we having lunch, and DiMaggio's restaurant was a real long, just a long restaurant, not big, but long. So we get done eating, and my dad he'd like to explore. He'd like to look at the plumbing. What kind of fixtures? American Standard? What do they have? So he's going for a walk, and I mean, from the end of the restaurant, he's in the back of that open door, and he's going like this. Come here. So my mom had to go to the bathroom. I walk in the back, and he's back in the backyard telling Joe DiMaggio what a great baseball player I am. DiMaggio's back there tending his tomatoes, and my dad's back there having a conversation with him. And prior to walking into the building, we took a picture of DiMaggio's restaurant. Polaroid popped out. So we had that in our hand, and he signed it, and it's in our Hazleton house. And we took a placemat from DiMaggio's restaurant that I just recently framed. Last point, but I won't get into the whole story, but I have a picture of DiMaggio with a little box underneath it from Bellhop's restaurant in Hazleton. Bellhop lived to be 100, was tending bar when he was 100. Bellhop went to Yankee Stadium. DiMaggio walked by. He reached over the wall, picked up the dirt, put it in his pocket. So that dirt in that little box in the bottom of this DiMaggio picture came from Yankee Stadium. I don't even know what year. Bellhop picked it up. I still go to Bellhop's. Great steak and cheese hoagie.
Do people, if you leave people tickets at games, do they still have to bring you that steak and cheese?
Yes, that or the Snaps Pizza, third base hoagies, Snaps Pizza, or Bellhop's with I like the steak and cheese with mixed Italian hot peppers and mild peppers on Italian bread. That's how.
And that third base hoagies is from your family's third base luncheonette, correct?
That's my Uncle Carly and my Aunt Geneva. Geneva was Beanie, my mom's sister. Uncle Carly had it mid-40s. Okay. And my cousin David still runs it. My mom Beanie worked there till she was like 81 or 82. Mm-hmm. It's still the best hoagie. It was right across. It's right up the street from where I grew up. I grew up in an apartment, and the high school is right across the street, and then the base is right across the street from that. So that was lunch. Lunch, you'd get out for lunch. You'd walk across the street. Beanie would have all my stuff ready. Would pass it over to the kids in a paper bag. Go down to the apartment, eat it, and then go back, play some basketball at lunchtime.
So becoming a restaurateur was kind of like a natural thing. It was like in the cards for you.
Well, how about you guys? I mean, doesn't the whole family and everything about your household revolve around the kitchen? Correct?
Yeah, of course.
So, I mean, that was it. The best way to communicate for me is in the kitchen. Right now, we're renovating our kitchen in Pennsylvania, Jay's, and putting this. We really want to get this together. We're renovating this really cool old house up there. There's going to be a new kitchen going on into a courtyard. I'm putting a grotto to the Virgin Mary off to one side and a pizza oven off to the other.
Yes, got to have the pizza oven. Can I come over? Hey,
forget Chris.
I still have you gave me your number down, Tampa. I still have it. I try not to abuse it, but let me tell you something. You put brick oven pizza in front of me, I'm going to take you up on it. When you come to Boston, I'm texting you, and maybe I'll just go down to the house by myself if I can or whatever.
I'm always welcome. And it's right on the golf course too, the Valley Country Club. It's right on the course. If you go, pardon?
I'll be the caddy for you.
You get in touch with Frankie, and you could play.
You make sure when you come to Boston, I'm going to text you before you guys come up. I'm going to get the courses set up every day, depending on how the series looks.
Very groovy.
And then the trade-off is I need brick oven pizza and more stories from you at your house. So.
You got it. I'm serious.
I love it.
It's that cool. I'm not exaggerating. It's that cool.
I would love to extend this, but I know we're short on time tonight. So we usually end the show with like a little rapid fire thing. It's kind of silly. So I got crowdsourced like 2 questions, and they're super controversial. You don't have to ask them. You don't have to answer if you don't want. And they're not controversial, but it's just like one of those things.
Sure.
I'm going to ask you this first one, which is our go-to question, and Natalie gets to ask the first question all the time.
It's my go-to. Since we talk about food and everything revolves around food, sauce or gravy?
Sauce or gravy?
Yeah.
It's sauce. It's sauce. Yeah, it's sauce. But
I call it sugo. Sugo, you call it.
Sugo. Jeff Jones's mom, Angie, and Angie was a Calabrese. I think the farther south you go in Italy, the more it's gravy. I think, because no.
No, I don't know. I don't think so. It's sauce.
Natalie has shunned anyone who has said gravy on the show. By the way, anyone. Like I approached, he said gravy. She almost killed him.
We had our own spaghetti sauce in Chicago. We were marketing it, and I still want to bring it back. It's Madden Family Spaghetti Sauce.
I heard about that.
Bring it back and put on the pizza.
We're going to try to get a lot of things. I got a beer. I got sauce. We got a vodka sauce. I got a pizza sauce, and I also got chow chow, like for the Polish side.
Well, your beer is Try Not to Suck. Is that the one you're talking
outstanding? I promise you, it's outstanding. It is. We just got to get it to another brewery. I mean, my thought is to bring it back to northeastern Pennsylvania, where I'm from, and really try to get it like a little niche kind of a market back there. And if it goes bigger than that, that's fine. But all the proceeds from all this goes to our foundation. I always respected Paul Newman with what he did with the Newman, all the different products. And that was kind of like my pipe dream to see if I can grow it. We can grow it like that. I still think there's opportunity because the stuff's that good.
Yeah. Try Not to Suck is like one of my favorite pieces of advice I ever got from anyone, by the way, too. So the fact that like you're so tight with that statement, right before my first workout for a major league team, my roommate in college calls me to the side. He's like, "Hey man, I got something really important to tell you. Like, this is the biggest day of your life probably." And he goes, just try not to suck today. All right. I was like, thanks, man. Big inspirational speech.
And
well,
that's perfect.
I know where it came from. You were talking to Javi Baez.
Yeah, that's
that
right.
Was your intention, and you just said try not to suck.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were up in that old manager's office at the Wrigley Field before they transformed it into what it is. It's gorgeous now. And I'm sitting up there, and Javi's there, and God, I love that guy. And he is, of course, he's a little bit nervous, and we're talking in the office. And I said, before he walked, I said, Javi, just one thing, man. Just go out there and try not to suck and let it all hang out.
Yeah.
And he kind of smiled, went out there, and because Javi's Javi. This is a wonderful, wonderful young man and tremendous talent. I love working with him. So bright. But that was it.
So talented. Well, this is supposed to be rapid fire, but I like this way better, by the way. So the next question, I'm going to go right to the controversial one. This was a crowdsourced question. I had 5 people ask me this today. Because I said, hey, I was trying to figure it out. Longoria or Bryant? You don't have to answer. I know it's hard, but
wow.
They're two. But Longo. No, that's like. And I don't mean to be fence walker, but that's pretty close. I mean, Longo really put the Rays over the top. He had so many clutch hits.
Yeah,
so many clutch hits. And then, I mean, I think Longo's influence on the ascension of the Rays was greater than maybe Chris's was on the ascension of the Cubs.
Sure. Yeah.
But KB is a really good baseball player. Everybody looks at KB and just looks at his hitting. This guy's a great base runner, really fast, plays multiple positions, has a very good arm, and never complains. Wherever he sees his number is, that's the thing he has over Longo is the versatility.
Yeah.
Longo, I think, he was the right guy in the right place for the Rays at that particular time, where Chris was like, there's a lot of fanfare there, but he was more easily absorbed with that group, which was a pretty nice group around him, a lot of really good vets. So I think Longo had a bigger impact on the ascension of that group. At KB, I love the versatility there.
Tremendous answer. Well played. My palms were sweaty as I was getting ready to ask it, but I promised I would ask. I know it's like putting you on.
No, I'm good. No, I don't mind that. I do that every day. I mean, it's just true. I'm just giving you the truth. That's Absolutely. A really good question, and it's really close.
Absolutely, I agree. I couldn't agree more. The next ones are all layups. They're easy. So, rosso or bianco? Because you're a wine connoisseur.
Rosso. I'm red. I'm all red, man. All red.
I didn't know if there was it depended on the meal or anything like that.
Nah, the white with if I'm having I love steamed clams, linguine with clam sauce. I'll go with the white, something like that. I really dig on that. I like an Aperol spritz or a Campari spritz. I'm a Campari guy.
Okay.
I was in Verona, Italy a couple years ago. We were staying at the Sonia de Juliet, the area for Romeo and Juliet, this little courtyard. We were staying in a hotel on the 3rd floor. Go right down the corner of the piazza, and there was we were introduced to an Aperol spritz and a Campari spritz.
Yeah.
God, I love Campari.
Oh man! Every time I go to Italy, they talk to we got to go get an aperitivo. Every time I go back over, and it's always an Aperol spritz, and I'm like, oh, I don't know what that is, but just keep putting them in front of me.
No, they're so good. I mean, I could do Campari. I just got a Campari umbrella for the pad back in Pennsylvania. So it's on this nice little porch, sits up a little bit Campari.
You're just trying to get me to come over more and more. Everything you say.
Hey,
awesome.
Man, we got some golf rounds to play. I can't wait.
Hey, great course. I'm telling you, great course.
I have two more. These are both. I'm going to go with the crowdsourced ones because I had some other ones, but I like these. Sinatra, Bennett, or Martin? Dean Martin, Tony Bennett, or Frank Sinatra?
Well, I just got to meet Tony Bennett last year, the year before.
Automatic, right? You have to go with him.
Well, I mean, yeah, he looks like my Uncle Eddie. My Uncle Eddie looked like Tony Bennett. Sinatra.
Yeah.
I mean, I left my heart in San Francisco. He sang that a cappella before one of our World Series games in San Francisco. I think it was that, or this was the anthem. I thought he sang I left my heart in San Francisco. But that one song, I mean, I know Sinatra's got all this New York, and all this other stuff. Dean Martin was just cool. Dean Martin was just funny, cool. Never missed a Dean Martin show. Joey Heatherton, everybody that he had on the show back in the day, played the drunk guy. Funny. Sinatra, but Tony Bennett, and having had a picture take with him, like, I don't even know, it was like right before the pandemic. I'm gonna go Tony.
Yeah, I like that answer. All right, this is another one. You're getting all unique questions tonight. The saucer gravy one's the only one, and the wine one.
Okay.
Another crowdsourced question: Giada De Laurentiis or the Barefoot Contessa?
Oh.
Wow. Barefoot Contessa.
Well played, sir.
Yeah. Barefoot Contessa.
Thank you so much for coming on our show. It's an honor for me to talk to you. I can't wait to see you when you come to Boston. If humans are allowed to interact, I promise I'll come visit.
That'd be awesome.
I'll shoot you a message. Thank you so much. You are the man in my book, my friend.
Thank you, CC.
This is awesome. Thank you.
Well, you know what? I honestly, I'm just back to you guys. Your research is outstanding. I mean, I get to do these things once in a while, and your research was stellar.
Well, we are the #1 rated podcast this side of the Mississippi that airs once every month.
Really?
On Tuesday or Wednesday nights after 7 p.m. So, like, we're one of those dubious stats.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Well, you guys, you compliment one another very well. Good job. I really appreciate it. I mean that sincerely. Thank you. I'd love to meet. I've seen CC. Natalie, I'd like to meet you in person someday. But absolutely, we're at the ballpark. Come on by.
Sounds good. I will be in touch, my friend. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you in the summertime.
Yeah.
All right.
And also to Bob Curry for setting this up for us.
Yeah.
This is awesome. So thank you so much. Everyone, tune in the next time. Follow us on IBF.com. And we're signing off. And we're going to send it over to John Morosi. John?
JP, my
Johnny,
man.
how you doing?
Hey, how are you? Natalie and Chris, thanks for letting me stop by. And Joe, thanks for your time. Great interview, great conversation. That was awesome.
I got to tell you something. And Joe, I'm going to get this from you in the summer when I come see you, but I want you to know something. I'm going to turn my screen. So I have my baseball home plate thing right there. JP, I don't know if you can tell, but your ball is right in the middle. John Paul Morosi sent me my favorite Christmas present ever. Thank you so much. It says Forza Azzurri on it. The Joe Madden's going to go right next to it when I get it signed this summer. So,
you guys are sweet. Thank you, man. I appreciate
that. Take care,
guys. Thank you both. And again, thanks to Bob Curry for setting this up. And Joe, this is a special honor because I have so much respect for you, and I really love the conversation that you had there with Natalie and Chris. A lot of great conversations over the years, but this one will be special too because we're going to share this, and our thanks to Bob Curry as well for setting this up. We're going to share this with some coaches and managers back in our home country, back in Italy, to help them grow the game over there. And our coaches there, this of course organized the Baseball Federation there in Italy. Curious just to really get your thoughts about bullpen management, also just creating the culture around a team. And certainly we'll be speaking here, and our audience, of course, Joe, is the youth team coaches, national team coaches, those really at the grassroots of baseball in Italy. And so if it's all right, I'd love to ask the first question about, I think it was, again, reading Tom Verducci's book years ago that you had actually had some experience running clinics in Europe, I believe, with the pitching machines that you'd work with. So maybe share a bit of the story of your own personal experiences with European baseball.
Love it. Bill Arce got me started. Mr. Arce has passed away. Bill Arce was the athletic director and baseball coach at Claremont College in Southern California. Really outstanding institution. Mr. Arce was a Stanford graduate and fought in the Battle of the Bulge. So Mr. Arce in the middle 90s asked me to go do clinics, Major League Baseball International. So the first time I went with them, we started in Amsterdam, and then we went to Milton Keynes in London area, above London. And then eventually we ended up in Florence for baseball clinics. And so the first time I was in Italy was in Florence to do baseball. And I remember distinctly having to work through an interpreter there. And I was really emotional. I mean, that was my first time there. And I'm looking at the audience, and I wanted it was a lady that was doing the interpreting. I want you people to understand that I'm really, there's a lot of faces out there that look very familiar to me. And this is really grabbing me a little bit emotionally because grandparents came from here. So I went there, and it was, I did it with Dave Duncan and Herm Snyder. We all went out there to do these clinics, but really involved, really technically sound, really into it. And then eventually I went to the city of RHO, outside of Milan. And I did a whole week there with one team. And my pitching coach's name was Pino. And Pino and I still stay in touch. Pino lives in Rome right now. And he just wrote to me recently. But yeah, I had a great time over there. Like I said, I've been there twice to do clinics, Florence and Milan area. But I did the whole tour. But Sal Villarreal was my connection out there. Also, Sal still stays in touch also. And I've also did like a cameo in Verona. Jim Hickey was there with Derek Shelton, and Jay and I we're just on vacation. We're going from Venice we're eventually going to Barcelona, and we're just going across there via train. We stopped in Verona because Hickey's and Derek are doing a clinic there. So I get up on stage, and they're all talking and stuff, and they weren't listening to me, but they're all kind of like drinking a little bit too much Rosso. So I had a good time with that too. But I love going there, and it's really well developed, and it's something I like to do again.
What did that experience, Joe, tell you about what the keys are to developing baseball in Italy, and just what you saw in terms of the potential of the athletes there, and also, to your point, the knowledge they have of baseball?
You got to get them started young. You got to really infiltrate the youngsters. You can't wait till they're teenagers, 15, 16, 17, to really introduce the game. Because when I was there, I thought I got to look at these really like 10 and 11 and 12-year-olds. Those are the kids that might have an opportunity to really become proficient at this game to the point where they can be considered for the United States baseball. So that was it. I mean, I would really create a well-developed, youthful like a Little League, like a real sound. And I'm not saying like you have to be overboard teaching technique, but you have to get them out there throwing the ball properly, learn how to swing the bat, use their legs, their bottom half. That's the thing with all sports, but the bottom half is so important to teach 10, 11, 12-year-olds how to use their bottom half will lead to the proper throwing and hitting techniques. And just the understanding of the game, movement, fluidity, what is a force play? What is infield fly rule? All these little nuance of our game. So I would really bear down on that group, and you'd have to at some point just really develop a more sophisticated version of Italian Little League in order to really achieve their goals to get to the point where you're going to see more potential athletes coming over here and wanting to play over here. If you wait too late, you're going to develop nice club teams. You're going to do like some nice, Sunday things, which is wonderful just to grow the sport. But if kids are really looking to become potentially professional players, I think they got to start a little bit younger and a little bit more sophistication to that group.
Joe, is there a space in childhood, do you believe, even in this time, and of course it's different from when you grew up, from when I grew up, about just growing up and playing different sports, but do you think that for an Italian youngster of those ages that you mentioned, do you think that there is still enough time and versatility for baseball, for example, to be one of the sports that could potentially coexist with a soccer, with a basketball? As you, of course, played multiple sports growing up, is there a way for a high school age student to still play baseball at a high level, but also keep interest in other sports as well?
Well, yeah, I think there is. I know there is. I mean, I love diversity when it comes to that. I think I don't like specialization at an early age, whether it's United States or in Milan or Verona. I learned so much from different methods, different coaches, different body movements, footwork, whatever you want to call it. Just soccer's got to be a great bottom half game to the point where it should be able to help defense, et cetera, in baseball. I like kids playing more than one sport. I don't like travel teams. I really like play for the city, play for your boundaries, play for some traditional pride. I like all that stuff. I don't care where it's occurring. I'm not a fan of the way it's done right now. What we're developing here right now is a group that just wants to be best in show, not necessarily out there to try to win for good old Hazleton or West Hazelton or Tamaqua or Berwick, whatever. Everybody's just trying to go out there and spin the ball more, hit it higher, hit it farther, and try to be the number one rated prospect in this camp, number 3, whatever. I'm good with all-star teams. I think that should be the residue of good performance over the course of time within a boundary, and you're not permitted to go out of boundaries. Grow up in this area, develop this area, play in that area, and really develop a sense of pride in what you're doing and try to win for a specific group, and then branch out after that. I don't care where it's located. I don't like the methods being employed. And furthermore, I mean, my parents could have never have afforded, and a lot of parents today can't afford travel team situations and paying to play. God, I think that's abhorrent. I really do. I do. I don't like it at all. So I would prefer, and it would just come down to getting the black athlete involved in inner city. These kids can't afford our game if they're going to have to compete on this with this kind of circumstances and money involvement. Just play the game, man. Don't make it so darn complicated. We're making everything complicated. We're making it complicated on the major league level too. It's a game. It's a game. It's very basic. It's very simple. It's fundamental, and we're taking all that away with this thought process of trying to include all this analytical component to it, and we're taking away from the art and beauty of the game. And we got to really not forget what this game's all about. And it's a team game, conceptually a team sport, and you're there to win. And it's not just about you.
Joey, if I can go back to some of your player development background, of course, all those years ago with the Angels as well, and of course, working with some of the younger minor league pitchers, I wonder if we're thinking about the coaches out there listening to us, whether they're in Italy or the U.S. for that matter, and you're imagining a 16 or a 17-year-old pitcher. And to your point, we focus so much on velocity now. But for you, if you're watching a game or if you're watching this young pitcher develop at 16, 17, what do you want to see? What are the key things? We understand velocity is important, but what do you see that really tells you this is a fully formed young pitcher?
Okay, pitcher. I mean, first thing, you look at the body and how the body works. Is there fluidity about it? Is it full effort? Does he do it easily? Does the ball come out hot? You look at him from behind the catcher, and I used to like to look from the side to see how the arm worked behind him. Was it a long arm? Was it a short arm? What was happening back here? How easily could he get to the release point without, like I said, really the guys that could do it more easily, I think, have a tendency to not get hurt as easily. Where the full effort guys, max effort guys, it becomes a little bit more difficult even when it comes down to throwing strikes. Delivery, and how does the body work in regards to delivery? What does his line look like to the plate? All those things are really, really important. If he has a breaking ball, what does his spin look like? If you see a young pitcher that really spins a baseball well, but his velocity is not where, like spinning when talking about a curveball primarily, not so much a slider, but if he could really spin a curveball and his velocity is not where you want it to be at, you could pretty much believe it's going to be, because it really takes a strong hand and that action in there to really, that wrist movement, that eventually, as he gets stronger, I think the velocity is going to show up. I like fastball, changeup, curveball, slider, cutter, etc. I think he should be added later. Stay away from splits, because think about it. If you have a decent split or real like a trick pitch of sorts, and you could command it somewhat at a young age, you're going to strike everybody out. But and they're going to be swinging at pitches outside the strike zone. So you want to be able to command a fastball, spin a breaking ball, develop the changeup, and again, throwing strikes is really, really big. Having a delivery that's repeatable and could be within this area on a consistent basis. I'm just talking like if I'm sitting in the stands right now, because I did scout. These are the things that I would look at, and you would want to build off of it from there. I also would just, what does he look like after a bad inning walking into the dugout? How does he sit down? Does he throw things around? Does he have composure? If he's had a bad moment, what does he do right after that moment? Does he come back because he filed that quickly and come back to the next moment and do the right thing? There's so much to consider with this, but from a physical perspective, how does the arm work? What does the delivery look like? Does he do it easily? Is it more max effort? And do I see him being able to really spin a baseball if the velocity isn't where I want it to be yet?
There's such a robust conversation, Joe, around workload, how many innings a young pitcher should be throwing. For the 16, 17, 18-year-old pitcher who our coaches might be working with, what do you see as the good guidelines? What would you like to see the guidance where obviously you want repetition, you want practice, but then again, there's such thing as too much of a good thing?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think a lot of it depends on the kid himself, size, strength, how old he is, where he's at developmentally speaking. I just don't like when a kid goes out there and maybe he throws 100, 75, 80, 90 pitches, whatever, and then he gets a day off and then he brings him right back out with 1 day rest, something like that, or even brings him back the next day. That should never happen. If you are a young starting pitcher, and even if you're 16 and say you threw 75 or 80 pitches, you should definitely have, to me, the next day off, and the day after that should be nothing more than a light workout day. So I think that where you run into issues is where coaches are trying to win on these different levels, and they will take a good pitcher, throw him, and like I said, sometimes not even a day off, they'll bring him back the next day, or maybe with limited rest, bring him right back. And that's where the issues would be with me. I used to watch colleges, ASU, U of A back in the day here, and when they play those Pac-10 games on a weekend, man, Kendall Carter would get worn out. I mean, Kendall would come in the 5th, 6th inning on the first night, do the same thing on the second night. This guy would be throwing 75, 80 pitches per night per weekend. So these are the things you just have to be smart about it. You have to really, and I do it with me. I consider the longevity of the career of my players too. I don't want to put them in a position where you're going to hurt them. God, whenever you hurt, and I guess for me primarily would be a bullpen guy, through too much work, that really bothers me because I'm hurting this kid's career. I'm taking food off his table, all those things. I think about all those things in the moment. So you got to put, the coach has got to put his personal aspirations aside and really understand what's best for the kid. And so I, as a minor league manager, if you threw out of the bullpen, for instance, if you threw 15 pitches, I thought you were good the next night. If you threw 25, you needed 1 day off. If you threw 30 or more, you needed 2 nights off. Those are the kind of rules I went by with the relief pitcher. Starters, I'm okay with, depends on how he gets to 75 or 80 pitches. And there's a lot of work involved. As like I said, the max effort. There's so many things to consider, but I probably would keep it about 75 to 80 for a young high school kid. And he would have to have a day off. He would have to have a workout. And I would not bring him back minimum 4 days, definitely on the 5th day.
I know one thing that certainly you've talked about a lot, Joe, in your career, and is a big topic around the game, is how often you are warming up a reliever, and that just getting ready almost counts as well. So what advice would you give to coaches watching us and listening to us who want to know how to make sure that they're charting the pitcher's workload, not even what's in the game, but also just the preparation for the game to make sure that they're staying healthy and also staying ready?
You're right. I mean, when a starter warms up, they should always keep track of how many pitches he needs in the bullpen to get ready for the game. That should be a known number also. Bullpen guys, same thing. And that's why you have to be specific. I mean, they always, our bullpen guys, our bullpen pitchers like to know, if we're going to use them, where are you going to use me? Get them up for, get ready for Morosi, and you're like 2 hitters away, as an example. If you can be more specific with them, they know how to build into that. You can't always be that specific, but if you can, you should. And while the guy's warming up, your pitching coach needs to keep track of how many bullets they've spent down there in the bullpen getting warmed up. That matters. That counts. You get them up and you sit them back down in the 6th inning, and then you need to get them back up in the 7th. Most of the times, you hate getting a guy up 3 times in a game and putting him in. If you get him up for the 2nd time, and if you can't get him in the game, there's a lot of times you just tell him to sit down, he's done for the night, and you got to move on to the next guy. So you have to be cognizant of number of pitches, how many times you've got him up, know the guy, what he's capable of. And that's why you need honest responses from your bullpen guys. If they can't, most bullpen guys will say, I'll always take the ball. That really, I get it, but that doesn't help me. You need to tell me how you're feeling. So a lot of it has to be honesty from the pitcher himself to the manager. And from the manager's perspective, you got to be understanding of the fact that you can only warm up this guy so many times before you put him in the game and have him be effective or still not hurt him. And even if maybe he warms up 2, possibly 3, doesn't get in the game, he may need the next night off just from what he did in the bullpen. So all this stuff has to be monitored.
So Game 7 of the 2016 World Series, it would have finished up probably around 6 a.m. in Abruzzo, where the Maronini family came from. So yeah. I'm sure that they were up early watching the conclusion of that one.
Yeah, right.
Awesome. And by the way, watching 2 of our great Italian-American managers, yourself and Terry Francona, managing that game together, of course, a very unique moment. But when you think back on that Game 7, Joe, what are your favorite memories? What are the decisions that you relive? Again, we're talking about bullpen, certainly a lot of choices on both sides in that game. But what are the choices and the moves that you still think about with a smile or kind of reflect back on still to this day?
Well, that was a tough day. We had already been down 3-1, and that's what people don't understand. We're coming back from 3-1 in this series, and we do. The way the game started out with the Indians were swinging well versus Kyle, and then I had to get up John Lester, as Lester was plan B, and so ball was being hit well. Get Johnny up. Johnny's a starter, so you have to be really aware. But I'm talking about how many times up and down before you get him in the game, because he had already pitched a couple of days before that. He's not used to it. So there's this balancing act regarding when to get Johnny in the game. So then Kyle gets out of it. I think it was line drive to Kyle to KB at third base. And we're getting into that 5th inning, and that's where the controversy arises. And my big concern there was exactly what I'm talking about. How many times you get John Lester up and down before you put him in the game and still be effective, because he was, to me, the bridge to get this whole thing done. And if he was not able to be effective as the bridge, we could not have done that. Our bullpen, we had some guys that had been hurt, some guys that weren't pitching as well, so I didn't think we could bridge it that deeply into the game if it wasn't Johnny. So that was the tough part, was trying to pick the right spot to do that. And after Kyle walked Santana on a pitch that everybody told me was a strike, but was called the ball, and then here came Kipnis, and he had just had a nice day against Jake Arrieta. And here's the thing: here's a left-handed Kipnis with a switch hitter Lindor after that, who you prefer hitting right-handed. So, and then there's plan C, or there's the other subplot. You're not wanting to put Johnny in a real dirty situation. I didn't think having Santana on first with 2 outs, who's not a base stealer, was a big deal for John in that situation with Kipnis coming up. So that was the thing. That's all the thoughts you had to be weighing at that point. How do I get the most utility out of John without expending all his pitches in the bullpen? Did Kyle have anything left? He probably did, but the way that was set up, if Kipnis got on versus Kyle, and here came Lindor, I did not want him, Kyle pitching to Lindor. So that's part of the equation also. So you have to think it all the way through. It's not as obvious as it just appears to be on the surface. So there's a perfect example of getting a guy up and not wanting to leave him out in the bullpen. Johnny came in and actually was really good outside of one wild pitch off David Ross's shin guard or his face mask. It was pretty darn good. But that's an example. Later in the game, here comes Chappie and Aroldis. And Aroldis was pretty much obviously our primary guy. And he had pitched well throughout that whole series. And actually, he was a major reason why we're there. And everybody was, talking about the home run that he had given up to Davis, which was a long at bat. And he threw the fastball down where he could catch up to it. If he did not throw it down, he probably would not have, but he did. And here comes a home run. And all of a sudden, everybody's begrudging the move or saying bad, poor things about Aroldis. But Aroldis did a great job for us. We don't win it without Aroldis. Then he goes out the next inning because I felt he was still our best chance. And here's the subtle difference there. Miggy Montero was the catcher at that point, where David had been the catcher the previous inning. Miggy had a tendency to like breaking ball a little bit more. And so Miggy went out there and made Aroldis use his breaking ball more in the 9th inning, and that's what got us through that. And then eventually you saw CJ, and then you saw Mikey Montgomery. So it was playing out perfectly until the home run by Davis, obviously. And but those are the things you have to consider in that moment. And again, not everybody is privy to how you perceive each member of your bullpen in that moment and what you really think they're capable of doing in that moment. And after all, there's no 8th game of the World Series. So you got to get it done that night. So these are the thoughts that were going on in my head at that time, but I'm just trying to create the picture. It's not as cut and dried as it appears to be. There's layers, there's nuance to all these decisions. And obviously it did work out, and I'm so proud of our guys. And how about Carl Edwards Jr.? I mean, Carl, he did what he did. He got some big outs. And then Mikey Montgomery, I'll give you a little tidbit on that. Martinez, the last out of the game, our guru on the side, Mike Borzello. He does the pitch sequencing and breakdown. I can't remember the exact number, but Martinez against left-handed curveballs was almost 0 for his life. So he made sure that Miggy knew that we were going to throw this guy only curveballs, left-handed, hitting right-handed, and that's where you saw the chopper to third. These are the kind of things, again, that nobody understands. And he was in the game only because they ran for who they run for?
I think Coco Crisp, maybe.
Yeah, right. No, you're right. That's right.
Yeah.
They only ran, and that's a big difference there also. So this is the kind of stuff that gets lost in the shuffle sometimes.
Incredible parts of the story. Last couple of questions for you, Joe, on that. We talk about culture so much, and for the coaches watching this in Italy and thinking about how for a national team you've got players all around the country coming together. How do you develop in that circumstance the culture, that special connection and chemistry that we have always seen with your teams? What advice would you give those coaches working with young players now? Of course, now communication is so different from when you would have managed in the minor leagues. But what are those common threads that when you're going to establish a culture with young players, how do you do it? Well, what are the things that you could maybe advise young coaches to do right now?
What I talked about in that previous segment is that you really got to work on building these relationships fast, and you got to start earning each other's trust quickly. That is so important. Another line that I've used often, and I think it's absolutely true: if I tell you the truth, you might not like me for about a week or 10 days, but if I lie to you, you might hate me forever. So I think straightforwardness is really important also. I don't know what age group we're talking about specifically, but real professionals are able to maybe not like the truth, but they can deal with it. But if you try to dissemble a bit or throw different thoughts out there and not be sincere, people see through you very quickly. So that's always been my tact, is to be brutally honest in my approach in how I'm talking to these guys. And the superstar, the star, needs to hear it just like the dude that's just the last guy on this team. There's a tendency, I think, pretty much everywhere, that the little guys have big targets on their backs and the big guys have little targets on their backs. Everybody's afraid to talk to the guy, and he goes through this process of ascending, and this BS has not been called on him because he's always been pampered because he's the better player on the team, where the kid that's not is always the brunt of criticism. Always, always, always. I can't stand that. And that's why I've described it. Big targets on little guys, little targets on big guys. You got to treat them the same. You got to treat them the same. They got to feel that. And there's a sense of fairness that they got to feel from the manager. So the relationships and trust, absolutely imperative. Be straightforward with them, and don't be afraid of tough conversations. They'll respect you for that. I don't think there's an athlete worth his hair that doesn't really respect a straightforward, honest conversation with whomever's the manager, the coach running the team. I know from my perspective, I may not like it, like I said, but I can live with it. And if you're really a dude, this can inspire you as a player, and you're going to make the adjustments. And that, to me, if you're coming together in a brief period of time, you have no choice but to go in that direction.
I love that, Joe. It's just great advice on building culture. Mm-hmm. And just my last question for you, and again, thanks to you for all your time, and Bob Crary for helping us get this set up. The national team, and you think about the World Baseball Classic over the years, and of course now the Italian manager is Mike Piazza, the Hall of Famer. I wonder, Joe, if you could share just what your observations have been about international baseball in the past, whether it was watching a Team USA against Team Italy game or watching the Italian team play in the WBC.
Yeah.
Is just how aware have you been of international baseball, and what does it mean to you that there is such support, that you've got a Hall of Famer managing the national team, and of course there was the great showing that Italy had in the WBCs back in 13 and also 17 as well.
Like I said, Mr. Arce, Bill Arce got me involved in this in the mid-90s. I did clinics with Mr. Arce. I've been to Amsterdam, Haarlem. I've been to London, and then Milton Keynes University, Cranfield University. I've done this in Brno, East Czech Republic, really close to the Russia-Soviet Union. I've done these in Darmstadt at the Lufthansa Training Center. I've done this at Regensburg, Germany, in a beautiful ballpark they have there. Really cool, and a great training center. Done it in Rho in Italy, in Rho, outside of Milan. I've done it in Firenze, in Florence also. So I've done pretty much, that's been the group. I've been wanting to go to Israel and a couple other places, but I've seen it on different levels. And the kids that are involved are really sincere. They're really into it. And so when I get a chance to watch it, I'm fascinated. And of course, I just think about, if jet travel actually gets even quicker, whatever, the ability to move. I always thought I wanted to be part of the Barcelona, whatever. If Barcelona had a professional baseball major league team, that's where I want to go. I want to go to Barcelona. I love Barcelona. But if we could include these other countries somehow, get affiliated somehow, and really grow the sport that way, fascinating stuff. Fascinating. So yes, I do watch. I am fascinated. I've had friends in Germany. I still have friends in Italy. The people like Robert Einhorn. Robert was the manager in Amsterdam. Robert played for us in the Yankees, the Angels and the Yankees. And Robert stayed in touch for a while too. And like I said, Mr. Arce actually took baseball to China right after World War II. And I know Jimmy Lefebvre still stays in touch with me too. Jimmy was heavily involved in all of this. It's really, I'm kind of a curious guy. And it's really, Europe in general is fascinating to me. That's where my ancestors come from, obviously. And I'm really drawn to it. So maybe I'm biased in that regard. But if we could, the more we could throw out those tentacles and really develop high-level baseball in these different countries, that's what we're looking to do. And it's only going to happen if we infiltrate the youth. It's not going to be played at the level that we need it to be played at unless we get to the youth and then build it from there. Even Bobby Fontaine Jr. Bobby was going to take me to Russia years ago. We had Ilya, Zhenya, and one other guy, 3 Russians we had playing in the Arizona Instructional League. I don't remember 19, whatever that was. But Bobby was going to take me over to Russia, and I was all for it. Preston Gomez was going to take me to Cuba in the mid-'90s to do clinics down there. I'm in. I'm all for it. I'm all about it. I want to keep doing what I'm doing right now for several more years. And when I'm done with that, I'd be happy to really get more involved in that. But infiltrate the youth and bring them the original version of the game, play the game properly, fundamentally sound, utilizing the whole field as hitters, playing defense, catching the ball, moving your feet well, pitchers, learn how to pitch and not just throw. You can't be a rock thrower. You've got to know what you're doing with the baseball and understand. Really teach the more liberal arts version of baseball as opposed to specificity. I don't think we need that. I went to Lafayette College. I'm biased. Great liberal arts college. I think baseball needs to be taught in a liberal arts way also.
I love it, Joe. È sempre un grande piacere di parlare con voi. I always love catching up, and that wisdom right there, Joe, is just perfect about having that holistic approach to the game. I love it at the major league level. I love it in Abruzzo, Firenze, Milano, all the great cities that we're talking about.
Yeah.
I know, Joe, that we're all of us Italian Americans, everybody part of the baseball family, so proud of what you've done and the impact that you've made. So keep it going, everything you're doing. Respect 90, Hazelton Project, all the great things there, Joe. And I can't wait to hopefully see you in person during the course of the upcoming season. Thanks so much.
Brother. Thank you very much. And I'm hoping to bring all those things, that liberal arts approach to the Angel baseball. We really got to get it done this year. We got to start ascending now. And that's going to be a big part of my push in spring training. Grazie mille. Grazie mille.
Piacere mio. Alla prossima, ci proviamo presto.
Thank you, brother.
Joe. Thank you so much.
See you guys.
A great pleasure. All the best.
Thank you.